Can you think of a time, or would you even admit to it, a time when your communication, your words or your style of communication caused damage to you or to someone else? Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vulnerability Tour 2021. In May 2017, I was meeting with a group from my company, including our CEOs, and we were at a lunch meeting. I brought up a topic during that meeting, and I didn't think it was exactly controversial, but I could tell by the look on my boss's face that I had put my foot in my mouth. Or did I? The next day, he sat me down for a conversation. He expressed his disdain for what had happened the previous day. I left that meeting with my head down. To this day, which is March 11th, 2021, I'm still not quite sure what happened in that meeting, but I must have put my foot in my mouth, right? Regardless of what I said, I'm willing to bet money that I communicated poorly and that I communicated ineffectively. What was my body language? What was my tone? Was it even the right environment for that topic to be discussed? Who knows? It was probably all of the above, or at least a combination of them. That was in May of 2017. In August in 2017, I was terminated. It was a fair departure. I'm not really overly concerned about it, but I'm still not quite exactly sure what happened on that day in May of 2017. So communication can make a deal, it can make a day, it can make you, and it can most definitely break you. As a reminder, in this Vulnerability Tour 2021, we're covering several issues or several roadblocks that we're going to encounter. This is based off a book that my father published in 2005 called 17 Roadblocks on the Highway of Life and How to Get Around Them. We've already discussed failure. We've already discussed criticism. We're talking about communication today. I'm going to discuss anxiety, envy, immobilization, indecisiveness, self pity. So, this is going to be fun as we learn and grow together. So, today we're discussing the communication roadblock, or, or put another way, it's when you really can't say what you really mean. What happens when you're communicating ineffectively? What I mean by the way I communicate is the way I talk to others, the way I write to others. Mostly we're going to talk about verbal communication today, but it's also about how I receive communication. Obviously, 2020 changed the way that we communicate with each other, hopefully only temporarily. We've all spent more time on phone calls, on video calls, communicating in different ways. So what are the basic things to remember or to be thinking about as you look to improve your ability to communicate, as I look to improve my ability to communicate? One, remember to listen. Two, watch your body language. Three, make sure you have eye contact. Four, keep in mind your voice inflection. These are all going to be key things, particularly when you're communicating verbally. I know this, and this comes from the book that I mentioned. Great communicators can become great achievers. There are not many great achievers who do not know how to effectively communicate. You must effectively communicate if you want to be a great achiever. So communication is complex. We know that. There's so many factors that go into it. Every word, your facial expression, whether or not you're looking at your phone, it all matters. The slight changes can have a major, major impact. I'll just reference you back to the example I gave at the beginning of this. I thought the topic was rather innocent, but the timing, the way I communicated it, the other people present, the atmosphere was wrong. So keep in mind that all of these things can make or break a deal, dash the hopes of a job interview, destroy a business planning session like I did. We can't escape the responsibility of our communications. Our communications have consequences, but we do have the ability to make good choices when it comes to communication. Keep in mind that the best communicators know how to use the right tone, say the right thing, convey the right body language, all at the right time. That's what the best communicators do. So let's look at some quotes on communication. Peter Drucker says the most important thing in communication is to hear what is being said. Groucho Marx, I really like this quote. Years ago, I tried to top everybody, but I don't anymore. I realized it was killing conversation. When you're always trying for a topper, you aren't really listening. It ruins communication. Think about your children, how they're always trying to outdo each other for attention. Hopefully, as adults, we're not communicating the same way. Tommy Lasorda, one of my favorite baseball managers of all time, who just recently passed away. I motivate players through communication, being honest with them, having them respect and appreciate your ability and your help. So your communication can build this respect, and it helps you as you communicate with others moving forward. How about this one from a couple of thousand years ago, or greater than 2,000 years ago, from Plato? Wise men talk because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. We've all seen that, right? Some people just have to get the words out. They just have to say something. Plato would call them a fool. Mark Twain. The difference between the right word and the almost right word, the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. Think about that. If you almost use the right words, sometimes that's just not enough, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. William Butler Yeats, think like a wise man, but communicate in the language of the people. Think about how they're going to hear what you're saying. If you use big words and you're talking to a crowd that don't use big words, you're not an effective communicator. Ernest Hemingway, when people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. Think about that. A lot of these quotes are about listening. Listening, that's one of the best methods of communication. Hearing what others are saying. Not only that, hearing what they're trying to communicate to you. Words have power. They can inspire. They can also lead to negative things. Don't forget that. So I went out and did a lot of research on communication. I read a ton of articles. You can find articles all over the place, and they list multiple factors that impact the ways that people communicate. So in no particular order, I tried to look for the themes and bring some of these in. The first one is atmosphere. Make sure you have the right atmosphere. For instance, when I started doing video content, I was in a completely different room. It was dark. It was dingy. The lighting wasn't great. I've tried to improve the lighting now, but that's the same when you're talking to people in person. The atmosphere matters. Tone, we've talked about it. Check your tone. Check the way your words are coming out of your mouth. If you're excited, that's going to come out in your communication. If you're down, it's going to come out in your communication. So check your tone. Another common thing that gets in the way of effective communication is body language. We've all seen that. Either someone's talking to you, or maybe even you're talking to someone else, or you're in a group and you see people talking and they're using body language that says, I don't want to talk to you. I shouldn't even have to be here. You're not listening to what I'm saying. Body language is a barrier to effective communication and other nonverbal clues. Think about that. Looking at your phone, looking around somebody when you're talking to them, looking somewhere else like you're daydreaming. Think about your nonverbal clues. Most important way to get around the communication roadblock, again, listen. Listen. Listen to what people are saying. Understand what they're saying. Try to make sure that you're listening. And then this last one is so important, respect. We've all lived through 2020 and the first couple of months of 2021. Respect is missing in almost all forms of communication right now, whether it's, well, I say whether, it's especially in social media. But even in face-to-face meetings, I've been with friends, I've been around people. Respect is missing with how we communicate each other. And that's a huge barrier because people aren't going to pay attention to you. They're mad if you don't respect them. They're not going to listen to what you're trying to say. So as you know, we like to set the strategy for overcoming these roadblocks. So we've got 4 strategies that we're going to look at to help us overcome the communication ineffectiveness roadblock. I've said it throughout the session today, but one of them is learn how to listen, but not just that, learn how to listen empathetically. Listening is the key tenet of communication because it helps you know what people are trying to say to you. It helps you understand what you need to communicate back. But even more importantly than that is the book quotes Stephen Covey, and it says, empathetic listening is listening with the intent to understand. Think about that, the intent to understand. Do you really want to understand someone when they're talking to you? You should. And if you listen empathetically and if you listen with the intent to understand, it's going to improve your ability to communicate. Number 2, developing relationships as a way to overcome the communication roadblock. Hey, if there's tension, if you don't know somebody when you're trying to communicate with them, or if you've burned a bridge, so to speak, or if you've done something that has ticked them off, it's going to be difficult to communicate. If you've done something, gone around someone, gone behind their back, it's going to be difficult to communicate. So develop relationships. The status of our relationships will have a big impact on our communication. So think about that for a minute. What are we doing right now? 2020, global pandemic. We were forced to work from home. A lot of places shut down. What are we doing to develop relationships? We've had to do a lot of it through online, social media, through uh, video conferencing, talking with each other, networking. Now in Texas and in some of the other states, we're starting to get out a little bit more cautiously and carefully. But you've got to develop these relationships. You've got to build relationships to be an effective communicator. This next one's a little bit tricky, but face-to-face dialogue is key. I should say it's tricky in 2021. Face-to-face dialogue is key. Even if you're ready to go out and have a face-to-face dialogue with someone, they may not be ready. And we're all encountering that right now, particularly those of us who are in business development and looking to get in front of people. People a lot of times don't want to meet with you face-to-face. You can still use video. You can use video conferencing. But face-to-face communication allows for immediate feedback. You can see what they're thinking. You can hear what they're thinking. They'll tell you when you're face-to-face. So try to get in front of people when you're communicating with them. And then finally, a way to overcome the roadblocks, which we've already discussed, is be sensitive to nonverbal clues. People will tell you what you're thinking. You're telling people what you're thinking about your communication too with your nonverbal clues. It's easier to discern what they're thinking if you pay attention to the nonverbal clues. Words have meaning. We all understand that. Maybe you can't convey tone in an email. I've always heard that, though I don't believe it. You can convey tone through an email, but there are other nonverbal clues that you're going to pick up on when you're communicating and that others are going to pick up on when they're receiving communication from you. So hopefully these 4 strategies that we just discussed will help you overcome the communication roadblock, overcome when you can't really say what you mean. And you need to be thinking about your communication. We're going to have the ability to get out in front of each other. So think about ways that you can communicate more effectively. So, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me today. If you can, please like or subscribe or comment. I received a text comment from one of my good friends today, providing me feedback on one of the videos. It's very much appreciated, and it also helps me make things better moving forward. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing for others. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon.